You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. That was Joe Walsh, Life of Illusion. Then we had The Clash, Clamp Down. And we're here with my guest, Lynette Bishop, wife of Bob Coburn, and longtime producer, Greg Journigan. How are you?
We're good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Can we sort out the stage name bit?
Oh, Coburn. Okay, so that was a name given to Bob by one of the stations he worked at back in the day. The next jock they hired was going to be Coburn because James Coburn was very hot at the time. So that's how he got that name, and it stuck with him.
Yeah.
But his legal name is Bishop.
Same as yours?
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. Who knew? I didn't realise jocks have stage names. Well, I guess they do. Screaming Lord Such. No, I mean, Wolfman.
Mm-hmm. Wolfman Jack.
That wasn't his real name, was it?
Could have been.
Who else? Who else as a...
Well, the real Don Steele. I doubt that was his real name.
Yeah.
Seems to go on forever.
I'm King Stephen of Limblade. Does that sound right?
I don't know, but Bob's last name was always a challenge for will call anxiety whenever we went to shows.
Absolutely.
He had to throw down a couple IDs, and who knows if the label got it right or not.
Yeah. So what you guys doing here? Do you want to fill us in from what's going on?
Well, we're happy to announce that Bob's name and voice and legacy is going to stay alive here at KLOS. And they're going to be playing Rockline Encores.
So Rockline, basically, the archive of Rockline is very deep. As one of Bob's longtime statements was always that you have 30 years of history of rock and roll here that's sitting, and it is told to you by the people that created it.
Yeah.
Not some newspaper or TV or journalist or anything. It's questions by the fans and put together by the crew and by Bob that made it, the host really brought it all together. So we've gone back and found a bunch of, in the late 80s, there was before the internet was, and you could really digitize music and send it over the internet to people, they would do these things called Rocklines. And Bob would come in on a Friday and record these bits that he wrote out, and they would then send them out to stations to try to, get people interested in the show. The show was really peaking at that time, and they have never really been heard. They went directly out to the radio stations, and then they never went on the air. And so we've gone back and cleaned those up, modernized them with newer clips of Bob, introducing some of the Rockline replays that KLOS has been playing over the last year and since his passing. These are all new ones.
Yeah.
New introductions, new clips, and it's quite endless. We found 150 of them, and they've been remastered. And so on KLOS is going to play them on 11:30 a.m., 3:30 p.m., and 7:30 p.m. starting next Monday with the Van Halen infamous show that we can go into in a bit. And then every Monday night, Rockline ran on KLOS for 25 years every Monday night before Rockline split into two shows, which was a classic rock version and an active rock version. So there's going to be a 9 to 10 o'clock on Monday evenings. KLOS will air a full Rockline replay hour.
Every Monday?
Every Monday with two shows, two 25-minute segments.
Yeah. Exciting.
And it'll keep Bob's voice alive. It keeps the archives alive. It really keeps the history of KLOS and what Bob brought to that. And much like your show, a deep knowledge and just a really cool, laid-back, almost return to AOR type radio show that really made it what people are missing.
Why do you think that kind of radio, like Bob, me, whatever you want to call it, has dissipated, and it's basically just? Why do you think?
I think because the reason we stopped doing the show, you had Crosby, Stills, and Nash, or a couple of them on the show one night, and I'm sitting there producing the show, watching my screener, and the phones aren't ringing. How could no one be interested in calling in and asking David Crosby? Have we tapped out completely on questions for these guys? Mm-hmm. The newer rock bands that we did on the Monday show didn't have a tremendous amount to they didn't even know who their influences are sometimes, and so you had the challenge of everyone feeling like with social media and Twitter and Instagram and everything else. Why do I need to talk to this person? He's only this far away as my arm can reach on my phone, and I feel like he's right here. It's not me sitting in my living room wanting to get in a call to Angus Young back in 1983 because I'll never, ever, ever get to be that close to Angus Young again.
It's a different world, though, isn't it?
It's a different world, and that's the challenge that we were up against. And Rockline was such a simple concept. You know, call in and talk to your favorite artist. You'd think that anyone could pull it off.
Yeah.
But it didn't work that way. And the callers made the show, but Bob, the host, really brought it together. And when he bought the show in 2003,
Right.
he really brought it back to what it was and what I was just describing, a little AOR mom and pop going to visit your old record store and listening to some vinyl type show, and carried it. And that's the challenge we were up against. That's why we stopped doing it in 2014.
Now, you was with Bob for 30 years.
30 years I was on. I started as a gopher.
You're 18.
I was 18. Yeah.
How'd you get the job? Or was it a job? Was you just a slave?
I wanted to meet the Scorpions, so I sat on the curb for a couple nights, and they took me on the road for 3 days, and I was like, well, I can go back and sit on the curb and get more autographs. This is 1984. And one day, finally, Mark Felsock came out and said, kid, you want a job? We need a gopher. And then it was off and running from there. And then I produced it the last 13 years.
What station was that you was hanging about outside?
It was KLOS. It wasn't KLOS. It was a jingle house that we had found in the valley. I thought it was here. I sat here and talked to the DJs. Finally convinced me, kid, go somewhere else. They sent us somewhere else. We got caught climbing over a wall, and we ended up on LA Studios on Cahuenga in Studio City.
Mm.
And I was cool. You know, it's kind of like you learn how to behave.
Mm.
You knew how to behave then. You didn't push people, and you didn't push people away, and they gave me the gig, and as the gopher, you were pretty much, crapped on.
But you was in heaven, though, right?
I was in heaven. It's the best job I ever had. That's the book Bob and I wish we'd wrote.
So you started as a, dog's body.
I started parking Bob's car.
Yeah.
He had a Porsche with a very tricky clutch, which I've told the story, and basically set up and break down before the show, microphones, food, whatever you want. Get autographs for people if they want them. Whatever you're told to do.
For nothing? You did it for nothing?
$50 a show, I think I got.
That's a lot, isn't it?
I was living life.
18, yeah.
18, 1984.
It's a good gig. Let's play a little bit of Rockline. This is with the Faces, Ron Wood.
Yeah, this is a Rockline replay where Bob would send these out to a station, and Ron's talking about leaving, going from the Byrds to the Faces to, and even going from playing guitar to
Stones.
bass.
Not going to the Stones, though.
No, it doesn't quite go to that.
So
but
when was this recorded? Do you have any idea?
This is, I believe...
72?
No, this is a recording, I think, I want to say 86.
So he went from where to where?
Well, he talks about leaving the Byrds.
The Byrds? Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You recorded it then?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, then he talks...
That was like in the 60s, right? Late 60s.
And then changing guitar and moving into the Faces and some of the challenges he had with that.
Yeah, he played some bass on some of the early Faces albums too.
Yeah, I found a book I had signed by him in '96, and I know this is before that. So.
Mm. Well, let's play it. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS with Lynette Bishop, Bob Coburn's wife, and Greg Journigan. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And this is from Rockline. Take it away. You're listening to Jonesy's Jukebox on KLOS. That was a Rockline replay with Faces, Ron Wood. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounded good.
Very cool.
I'm a massive fan of the Faces.
I'm a massive fan of the Stones.
Yeah, I like them too. They're all right. I like the Small Faces as well.
Yeah.
So, here we are. You got a T-shirt thing?
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking me about the Be Seeing You T-shirts, and they're now available through the KLOS website, and 100% of the proceeds go to the American Cancer Society, so it's a very cool thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. What else?
So you're going to air the Van Halen show on Monday? That's the kind of infamous...
What's infamous about it?
Well, it's 1984. It's right, infamous in our minds, at least, because it's all visual radio.
They wasted?
Yeah.
So that's the gist of it.
That's the visual.
Yeah. The bleep button.
It didn't. This is from February of '84. Bob had to fly to Atlanta. Bob always said that he was just literally thrown into this this nut house. There was a guy, I believe, going around. There was no one could touch the drugs, but they could come to you. There were strippers. I remember here. This is before I started. This is like 6 months before I started. I remember Bob always talked about the drum, Alex Van Halen. I'm going to say the names. Doesn't really matter.
They're called entertainers now, strippers.
Yeah. Drank a whole 24-pack of Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah.
They were at their peak. It was a nutty show, and you can hear it. You'll hear it when you hear it on Monday night. There's a lot of bells and whistles going on. David Lee Roth was on fire.
And funny thing, Bob never mentioned there were strippers at that show to me.
I'm telling her now.
Oh, man. This is a surprise to you right now, then?
Surprise to me.
Entertainers, you mean?
Entertainers.
Remote shows were always a challenge because you couldn't see, and you really had, you had to, you as the listener couldn't tell. Bob was so seamless that you couldn't tell that they weren't there.
Yeah.
But we had some definite challenges with, especially in the heyday, with people partying.
Yeah.
I know a famous Motley Crue show where I told Vince, I've told this before, where I told Mick Mars, who was not famous for talking much of Motley Crue, but he had to carry the show one night, and thank God for Mick Mars, because who was on the show with him fell out face first and took us off the air and passed out on the mixing board.
Yeah.
So there was always those fun challenges of live radio.
They were the days, weren't they? I don't know why you guys don't do a movie. Have someone play Bob and go to various situations with rock and rollers. You know what I mean?
That's actually a great idea.
Yeah.
Play out scenarios of what the story you're telling me, you make it come reality.
We did, he talked about writing a book one day once it was all over and he knew he didn't need them as guests anymore, so to speak, if we told stories that were...
Yeah, he just ran out of time to write a book.
He did, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Well, someone could do it for him in a movie form.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a little Larry Sanders, if you remember that show, with Gary Shandling element to sometimes the way that the hijinks of the show went on, with various characters that worked on the show and showed up sometimes to the show. In the heyday, Rockline was the biggest thing. There was no internet. There was no...
What was the peak?
I would say the peak was probably...
80s?
No, 80s, probably grunge's peak.
90s, early 90s?
Yeah, when grunge peaked.
Yeah.
And then once that peaked, it just there seemed to be kind of we still carried a lot of the newer bands, the 2000 bands, but with a lot of things in the entertainment, and especially the music and the recording business, the 2003 to 2010 is a very bleak era.
Yeah. As far as music.
As far as new music, as a transition, as people not getting a foothold on what the transition should be from what type of media to streaming to how we're going to pay these artists.
Yeah.
It was just the wild.
The Napster.
Yeah, the wild west, and then the actual music company, record companies themselves collapsing from eating themselves from within.
Yeah.
Trying to survive.
I didn't mind that when it all went belly up, to be honest with you. Could do with a change.
Yeah,
the fat cats.
It needed to break down and rebuild. I witnessed it at Capitol. It was rough.
Record company deals are not in favor of artists, that's for sure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of artists got screwed.
Well,
my opinion.
Bob loved the Monday show of breaking new bands, and that was a new challenge that we were up against because one, to get him to talk and get him to have interesting stories, and but if you could break a new band out there, and especially during that period with the transition of this whole business going on, he thrived on that a lot, and that was one of the kicks we got out of it. And I have one that I'm working with, and Bob was into it, and I'm just sad that the show ended and we never got to get them on the air because I think it would have helped and it would have been a great story, and that's one of the bummers I have about Rockline ending.
What decade would you say personally was your favorite?
What decade?
For music. Mine was the 70s.
I would say probably 80s.
You liked what kind of bands, other than the Stones?
I have a wide taste of music. So, I like them all.
Like Depeche Mode or Scorpions? Because there was a lot going on in the 80s too.
Right. No,
90s was my least favourite time for music sounds and everything.
I'm thinking of, in terms of the Rockline shows, I think I like the shows in the 80s the best.
Yeah.
That's my favorite period. I was a metal kid.
Yeah. Scorpions.
76 to 86 to 90 maybe.
All right. Well, we're going to do a rock replay of Led Zeppelin Jimmy Page right now. You ready?
Sounds good.
Take it away.